Well, good morning, everybody. Today we are on a new log job. The Amish sawmill, one of the Amish sawmills, needs some 10 and 12 foot red pine logs. So that's what we are working on right now. The college where I'm working at, the students are busy this week, so they're not going to be there much this week. So we decided to get this job done here. So that's what we're doing today.
Hey. At the end of this video, I share a little bit about one of the advantages of horse logging that you might not have thought about. So stick around and listen to what I have to say.
So yesterday afternoon I started this job and I realized that I was going to have some issues here. If I had gone another trail, it would have been very, very wet. And this trail here had a culvert in it. And as you can see, there's a stream right here. But the culvert got taken out last year and I never put it back in. And these big tiles work great for a culvert, but they were kind of smashed, and I figured they better not go back into the same spot, at least not until I did a little work there. So I brought up a steel pipe. I think it's a 6-inch pipe, and I think it's either 8 or 10 feet long. And I put it in here, and I decided, of course, I had to come up with the skid steer, which I did. And I brought the bucket up, and we set the pipe in there, dug it out a little bit, set the pipe in there, and then covered it up with some sand that we have plenty of right here. And I think it's going to make a great road, although it might plug up a little bit because it's so small. But we'll see how it works. morning. We knew we were going to have some interruptions, but they kind of came faster than we expected. We had 2 loads of logs coming from our Paul Smith's log job down here to some Amish sawmills, and the first load was a lot sooner than I thought it would be, and so all we were able to get out is 2 trees, and we had to quick go home, unload the horses, and go up and scale logs. And now, after a short break at home, Skip and I are headed up to the second sawmill to scale logs there. Here is the first sawmill that we sold our first load of logs to. This sawmill also is the same sawmill that we'll be bringing our red pine to this afternoon. We have to get them loaded up and trucked up here, and then get the skid steer back home by tonight, because tomorrow I'm going to be going back up to Paul Smith's College to log up there. Brenda said she could clean the barns by hand, but I don't really want to ask her to do that. And of course, the skid steer is how we normally do clean the barns. So we'll try to get it home so she won't have to clean by hand. So right at the moment I'm kind of supplying logs for 3 different sawmills, plus our own. I don't know if you saw in a couple of videos now, we've got a pile of logs stacked up from a load that came into our own sawmill, and we'll be sawing them up at some point. So Paul, my trucker, had texted me and told me about what time he'd be getting here, so I know he's coming soon. So this is the other sawmill that we're bringing logs to, and hopefully he can get in here and unload it without a problem. Well guys, I got the rest of the logs on. There was about a little over 1,600 feet of course, and I tried to split it into 2 loads semi-evenly, but I think I got more logs on this one than I do the last one, but that's okay. So we'll go unload them, and then we'll come back and take all my equipment back down to the house. Well guys, I'll load it up, ready to go home. Nope, we got one thing to do. This is something I gotta really work on because there's a few things I'm just not used to with this trailer. I gotta make sure I put my jacks up. Oh, we'll be dragging on the way home. Bear, get up. Get up. Get up. Well, good evening, everyone. Our night chores are done. And as you saw in the first part of this video, I used Bill and Duke today, but for just a short while because it was because of our situation. And I told you all about that. So as I started this video, I really wasn't going to do too much talking in it, and I didn't. But as I was thinking more about the day as the day progressed, I was thinking how one of the big advantages of logging with horses are. And I know that so many people would think, well, you can't make a living logging with horses. As a matter of fact, just recently, last week, one of the students at Paul Smith College, when they come in to do a session with me and the forester, I will ask them numerous questions. And so this guy that was in last week, I asked him the question, do you think that a person could make a living, an actual living, logging with horses? And his answer was quite fast and quite abruptly, no. And I kind of chuckled, and I didn't really go into too much detail as to how untrue that was. But I just let it slide and asked him more questions. And that, I think, would be the answer of probably the bulk of the people in this world, or at least in the larger countries, not so much the third world countries maybe, but for the larger countries. You just wouldn't expect that you could make a living logging with horses. It's too old-fashioned. It's too, antique-ish. It's just not going to happen. And so I think maybe even over the next little while, as I'm logging, maybe I should bring up some more reasons why and how I have been able to, for the last 40 some odd years, actually make a living logging. Now, don't get me wrong, I also farmed, but the bulk of my income has been logging, and I've had the best stretches of time financially with logging, not so much farming. And it was funny too, that same day I asked the student what he thought. After he said that, I asked, or John, the forester, kind of jokingly said, you don't have a trust fund, do you? And I had to laugh. Oh my goodness, my father grew up in logging camps. He was self-employed all of his life. He got his very first job when he was 78 years old. There was no money there, and there's been no real money in our lives, but we've survived and actually have done quite well. And I'm thanking God for all the blessings that we've had over the years, because I know that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, we have survived, but we surely haven't made millions, that's for sure. But anyways, I do think I ought to try and start talking about why and how I do make a living logging, because I do think in so many people's minds it's not a possibility. It's inconceivable, as that movie I think I saw once talked about. I'll probably edit that out, but anyways. So anyways, the one thing I thought of today was, and I think this is so true with horse loggers, we have the ability to just lift up, pull up and move to another log job. So on Friday, I logged at Paul Smith College, and Saturday I worked around here. Actually, Saturday was when Gary came with Ken. And so that's kind of killed most of the day Saturday. And then on Monday, I moved up onto this little job that I have where I did this red pine. And then I worked for a little bit in there today. So because of our ability to move off a job and move on to even a tiny little job, because we can move so cheaply, we can, my skid steer and my cart can be just put in my either the dump trailer, which is new to me, so I haven't had that for very long, or my trailer that I move my horses. So I can just easily move to job with no expenses hardly at all except for my time. A big operator with equipment nowadays, I have heard some unbelievable prices it takes to move from job to job. Now, you can't do that for a one-day job. You just cannot. You have to be there for a long, long period of time. You've got to have a tremendous amount of timber to move to justify moving. But for small operators like myself that can just at any time just up and move to another job, it's very, it's a huge benefit to us because we can, if a really good job comes up that's only a couple days worth, we can still do it. And sometimes we can make more money in those couple days than on a regular job that we've been working on day after day. Also during mud season, you know, you're limited as to what you can do because of the mud. And so if you've got another job in sandy soil, you can just move from your one job to that job and you can get some more work done. The secret, of course, is to keep on working as much as possible. But also the secret with horse logging is to get the right job. There's been so many jobs that I've been on that have been poor jobs that I've struggled tremendously to even break even on. But then there's been plenty of jobs where they've been very financially worth it to offset. And that's the way it is with any business, of course. You know, you've got to realize that whenever you're in business for yourself, there's times where you don't make that much money and there's times you make really good money. So that goes along with whether it's horse logging or skidder logging or so many other occupations. But I just wanted to share that one really big benefit that we have as a horse logger to jump from job to job at a very cheap price compared to people that are using equipment. And I'm not trying to compare horses to equipment logging because there's so many jobs that you really do need these big equipment on, or at least it's so much more beneficial. But there's so many jobs, small jobs that a horse logger can jump onto and make really good money that a big guy cannot do. And so I don't want to compare or compete against equipment, or at least I should say I'm not trying to badmouth equipment operators at all. I'm just trying to show some of the benefits of a horse logger. And I'm not sure if I explained that good or not. I'm watching Brenda's face as I'm talking. She's making some faces that makes me wonder if I'm saying all this right. But anyways, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking about today, and I wanted to share with you guys now. So I think that's going to do it for tonight's video. And I believe Brenda has a good meal for me tonight. I don't know what it is.
Pork roast.
Pork roast, she said. I like that. Mashed potatoes. I really like that. So I'm going to call it quits for this video and go in and have some supper. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.